Aloha, and welcome back to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast, the podcast where two dudes from halfway around the world talk everything green and gold. I'm Mike, and that's Iowa Joe, and tonight is the second time we're previewing the Vikings. And Joe, this week's been a little bit interesting, not because of the holiday schedule, but there's been a little bit of low-level fireworks for the Packers. Starting off, I guess we'll just dive into Jair with Flipgate. Jair has been suspended for this week's game by the team. Um, it's one of those. It's never going to land well, but they can't let that kind of thing happen off cuff and stuff like that. So I
Well, and
understand.
LaFleur said in his press conference that it wasn't just the coin toss.
Yeah,
So there must have been other things throughout the season, which, I guess to kind of keep the locker room, LaFleur's got to do something. He knows he's losing his players and he's got to make a stand. So yeah, it's confusing. I understand. Like I tweeted earlier, I understand it from an analytical aspect, but from a fan aspect, this is like really shitty timing, because you would hope that after seeing what he did to Justin Jefferson last year, Jair would play and you would be able to get him to lock down Justin Jefferson again this year. Well, now we've got to worry about Eric Stokes, Carrington Valentine, Corey Ballantyne, Keyshawn Nixon, and whoever else they decide to throw out there in the secondary. So yeah, like I said, I understand it. I really do, and it needs to happen. Jair, now a little part of me, just a wee little bit, maybe just enough in that finger or something, understands what Jair's coming from, because Charlotte is his hometown, and you would think they would have let him go out for the toss in his hometown. Don't know what the background issues there are, don't know what's going on with it, don't know why they didn't do it, but it is what it is. I again, just to kind of save face, I think LaFleur had to do something. Now I've seen people on Twitter say, "Oh, well, it should have just been a fine, should have been just a fine." We don't know that they're not already fining him for stuff. He didn't go to New York for the Giants game. Did he get fined for that? Some of the things that he said, are we sure he didn't get fined for that? We don't know what's going on in the background. This is one of those little times that I wish the Packers were a Hard Knocks team, just so we could see some of that behind the scenes type stuff. But it is what it is. It happened.
yeah, and I totally agree with you. It's one of those where it's as fans we always want to analyze everything on face value, but it's one of those things that it's hard to do so because we don't have all of the info on the surface level. That's all we're looking at. But like you said, LaFleur kind of alluded to the fact that there's more to it than just coin flip gate. And at the end of the day, it comes down to there might be other things that are happening under the water and all that kind of stuff, but you can't let one of your top paid players just kind of do whatever the hell he wants and stuff. So yeah, you gotta you know, I don't know how quick they were to, but you do have to nip these kind of things in the bud and stuff. So, um, Packers are going to roll into this game in Minnesota without Jair on the practice or on the health side. So they had 4 DNPs. Devondre Campbell was one of them. I just expect Dre isn't going to play again the rest of the season until we hear otherwise. Elton was out today, but he's missed at least one practice. I think the last month of the season, so not too concerned there. Watson and Wicks were both out today. Bunch of limited participants. The big one is Musgrave was still listed as a limited participant, and then the 2 full participants were Tenuta and Wilson, who are both also designated to return from IR. So the 3 of them,
Those
they're
two I
still
could
within
see.
their.
Yeah, those two I could see back. I What is it? This will be week 2 for Musgrave.
Yeah, so they're okay. So he was designated to return last week Wednesday. So technically he's gone through 7 days of his 21-day window. So I try to use the number of days, not like the week he's in, because it gets confusing because they're not like,
Right.
oh, yeah. So it's the semantics of that whole side of it. So yeah, so I think all three of them are on day like 8 or
I
whatever by
think
the time we're so,
I think the hope is that maybe if they squeak into the playoffs that he can be back for the playoffs,
yeah.
but it's too close to the end of the season to be risking, your young potential, you know, stud tight end can come back from a lacerated kidney. So it yeah, I don't see it.
At earliest, it
Um
would be
Now I
at
didn't get
earliest, it would be
to
next week if they win this week, yeah.
yeah. Now I didn't and I know you kind of went through it, but was Tucker Craft listed?
Nope, Tucker was not listed today, so,
Okay, because I
that's
swear
good.
he went out of last week's game with like
No, yeah,
he looked like he
yeah.
pulled his wrist or something.
Must have been relatively minor because, yeah, he was not listed at all today, but no, I remember you mentioning that, and I did see that after his last reception, so kinda good that, yeah, he was not even on the report today, so good thing for, good thing for the Packers going into this week, especially, with some defensive questions, but yep, I know that well, last time we previewed the Vikings, they had Kirk Cousins, and we were kind of talking about how Cousins was probably going to light up this Packers defense. Honestly, this week, I don't care which one of their backup quarterbacks starts. I don't expect Joe Barry to do much of anything to slow them down on defense. For the Packers defense to slow them down because yeah, all the cards say that Green Bay should be able to do something. Hawkinson unfortunately tore his ACL last week, and it sounds like from the early reports that Addison probably is going to make it back for this game because he has an injury that's he
People.
was a DNP for the Vikings today. But I mean, it took 2 games for Barry to adjust his defense to account for Jefferson last year, and Jefferson didn't play in the first game this season, so that means he's probably going to come out with some dumb coverage against Jefferson, and yeah,
He'll
it'll
like
be too
triple
little, too late.
cover Jefferson and then, like KJ Osborne or something will feast for
Yeah,
the rest of the game.
yep.
But
So the thing is
what
that
I told somebody earlier was they don't even need to make secret who they're gonna start at quarterback. Throw Josh Dobbs out there and just let him run over the defense like Tommy DeVito did.
seriously, but yeah, and obviously not having Jair is gonna, it's gonna hurt our chances on slowing Jefferson down. But realistically, they're gonna they should be able to do a lot of the same concepts that they did in week 17 of last year. They can play a lot of press on Jefferson at the line of scrimmage with safety help over the top. They can still do that with Stokes and Valentine, and even Valentine to a good degree. It's just a matter of, do you trust Barry to do that from the jump this week? Because I just foresee Barry kind of looking at the situation and saying like, "Oh well, Jair's not here this time, so we can't do that again," and that'll be
I
his
see him
excuse at
adjusting
the
his
end of the
play
day.
call as well as Brian Ferentz did.
Nothing more needs to be said there for the Iowa fans. So yeah, so I I expect there to be a lot of yardage for Jefferson by the time this game is over. Um, the advanced stats, and the advanced stats have the Vikings offense as the 21st by DVOA. Points per game, ironically, they're also 21st in the league with just a shade under 21 points per game. They are the 10th best passing off or overall yardage. They're 10th in the league, third best pass yardage, and that's with Cousins going down. What is that, like 6 weeks ago at this point? So they've still got a healthy passing average, and I don't expect that to change against Barry and this offense. So, or this defense, I should say. But I mean, looking at this, you'd like to say that Minnesota has lost a bunch of weapons on the perimeter. Their running backs are still, just not. I don't even think they're worth calling Jags at this point, but they do have a good O line, which unfortunately affects Green Bay's, supposed thank you for correcting that later on. What's it called? They're the Minnesota O line is still the strength of their offense, so they should be able to, slow down the Packers pass rush. So, I do think that in order to get some pressure on whoever is starting, like I said, it's probably Mullins. It's gonna take a little bit of an otherworldly effort from Rashawn or Kenny or someone like that along the front. And the main thing is that Mullins is looks who it's going to be in line to start, but really any of whoever the Vikings have at quarterback, they're going to put the ball in Green Bay's hands at some point, and it's a matter of converting on those opportunities. So that's the not so secret to this week's game. We'll see if the guys on the field can what's it called, if they can execute, because I don't have much faith in Barry doing anything worthwhile. So that's really all I've got. You got any nuggets for this one?
No, it's just gonna have to. The offense is gonna have to step up and just kind of, with no hope from Barry. You gotta hope the offense can just stay in a slugfest and get it down to a wire, kind of like unfortunately this Carolina game was, and
Yeah.
score as many points as they can, and just hope time runs out.
Yep. Yep. How sad that that's what our team has come to this year, but yep. And just kind of flowing into that. Thank you for the correction. Flores' unit is going to put the heat on any offense it faced, but especially this Packers offense this week. Um, the big key, it's nothing sexy this week. The Packers O line needs to play a lot better than it did back in the first meeting between these two teams. And in and on the next level behind that, you'd like to hope that, what is it, 6 or 7 weeks later, that the Packers skill position players are going to be in a much better place in terms of knowing their assignments, not busting routes and things like that. Because I believe it was that first Minnesota game where you had those couple of instances where you had like Jaden Reed yelling at Christian Watson in the middle of the route because he's like, dude, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. There was a couple instances of that. And then you had that one fourth down play where you and we weren't even sure if it was Love missed the throw or if he was throwing to someone who ran a wrong route, kind of that kind of situation. So can't have that, especially because Florida is known for bringing pressure from everywhere in every direction on any given snap. So everyone, all 11 guys, got to be on their toes. Got to have have their full focus on the given play and stuff. So it's just going to come down to clean execution. And, this is one of the harder venues that Love is going to have to operate in on the season. Trying to think where, I know that like the New York game, it turned into a kind of rough one because of the weather. Otherwise, and he's played well in Detroit. We didn't have to go to Kansas City this year. So, um, this game in Minnesota, this will be the toughest environment he's played in, especially with Minnesota still in the playoff hunt. And yeah, that's going to be probably the biggest key on offense is how Love and the O line are able to diagnose pre-snap reads and things like that, and how they're able to make sure they have any potential pressure blitzes picked up. Because if you let free rushers in against this defense, we kind of saw the effect of that in the first game, and it did have, that was kind of one of our notes from the first game, was that Love looked like he was expecting pressure when there wasn't necessarily pressure coming. So um that's one of those where it's like, okay, like if you got time, use it, but also be prepared for pressure coming in your face kind of situation. So it's going to be a lot of it is going to be won. It's one of those games where a lot of it is going to be won in the week leading up to it, because it's a lot of film study, a lot of pregame prep. But when you get your opportunities on Sunday, you got to execute.
Yeah, and I think I was seeing something being passed around on Vikings Reddit that the Packers have only won twice in 7 games at at what is it, US Bank Stadium or whatever the hell the bird killing stadium it
The
is.
bird killer.
Oh, yeah. So there's a lot going against the Packers. I know the big thing I'm not looking forward to the game is hearing that stupid ass horn. Uh, I drives me nuts. But yeah, Love's got to be perfect, and hopefully he has some of his weapons back. Hopefully Wicks can play. Hopefully Reed can play. It would be nice to get Christian back in there. I don't know how far out he is, because that would be nice to see a first play of the game, just a deep bomb to him to kind of make up for his rookie season drop, missing out on that one. So I, hopefully there's no major issues going on with Tucker and let him feast. And who knows, maybe it'll be a Ben Sims revenge game against Minnesota, and he'll just go nuts and take over. But I I think they're gonna have to do what they kind of started out doing with the Carolina game is just feed Aaron Jones. At this point, I would just keep feeding him until the wheels came off. I hate sounding like that because Aaron Jones is a good guy and I love him to death, but you can't just keep pitch counting it. If you're babying him to make sure he doesn't get hurt, then you need to bring somebody else in. And for the love of God, don't let it be Patrick Taylor. Please do not let it be Patrick Taylor. Bring up Kenyon Drake, activate Emmanuel Wilson, find what practice Sam Congato is working in and drag his ass back in. I don't care, but for the love of everything, do not let it be Patrick Taylor. And
Yeah.
but other than that, you're gonna have to feed Jones and just let him go. And he's a playmaker. That's plain and simple. And that's what we need right now.
Yeah, and part of it, you're right that they do try to like load manage Jones throughout the season, but the thing is this is the exact scenario that you want him around for, and having his full complement of touches is for this stretch run. There's not like 8 games that they all matter, but the whole point is to have Jones for quote unquote the games that matter most, and that's this stretch run. Trying to get into the playoffs, and if they make it in the playoffs. So this is where, like you said, it's not like hanging Jones out to dry or anything like that. But this is the exact scenario that you hope to have him healthy. And obviously, it's not it hasn't been the path to this that they've wanted it to necessarily be, with him missing half the season with injury or being dogged by injury dogged by or missing half the season due to injury. But whatever way you want to, not want to, but whatever way it got you here, you've got a healthy Jones now, and the team is on it's on the cusp of a playoff of a playoff spot. So, like you said, use it or lose it, and it's either win or go home at this point. So, yeah, nothing. There's no need to save bullets at this point of the season. Just let it fly. So, um, yep, it's like we said, it's not a sexy what the Packers have to do. O-line's got to play well. Need Jones to have a good game, and Love just has to play clean football. That's the big thing, because you look at what's happened in those losses at, especially this new US Bank Stadium. It's been the games where they've turned the ball over a bunch or just blown red zone opportunities. So Love's just got to take care of the football, and when they get in the red zone, score touchdowns. That's going to be, I know that doesn't sound super exciting or sexy, but I mean, that's what's going to win or lose you this game on Sunday. But that's kind of it. Like I said, we did already preview the Vikings before a couple months ago, and obviously the big changes at the quarterback position. And outside of that, there's some injury questions. Looks like Addison's not going to play again, and TJ Hawkinson is out with a torn ACL. And then on the defensive side, the Vikings are going to be without DJ Wanham, one of their edge rushers. So that is a decent level, but they still have Daniil Hunter and a couple other guys up front who can bring pressure. So Flores will still have a lot of options along his defensive front to attack the Packers offense. So, Joe, what do you got for your yes nos for this week?
I'm not even going to mess with yes nos just because there's so many. Like, is Watson going to play? Is all these injured guys going to play, or I guess you could say, will Patrick Taylor get like 2 carries in a game or whatever? But uh, so I think we'll save yes nos for maybe next week, or even do a season finale type thing for yes nos. Uh, I'll go into the over under so just to kind of finish out. But before I do, and I know we usually cover this at the end of but I have to say this because it just popped up on my phone on Reddit. Posted my newest article. If you haven't read it, go to ohanapackers.org. I take a look at 5 possible replacements for Joe Barry next year, and 2 of them are getting the most heat right now: Al Harris and Steve Belichick. And I I understand the Al Harris, because Al Harris says he's more of a player developer than a play caller. Fine, that's great, whatever. But he's still a possible replacement. That's why he hires his own people to be in there to make those. He can say, "Hey, Jim Bob, you're calling the plays, but I'm going to oversee the defense." That's kind of what we would hope with Joe Barry right now. Joe Barry saying, "Hey, I can't scheme this. I'm going to develop these guys. Hey, uh, Olividati, you call the plays this week." That would be
Yep.
great. And the other one, Steve Belichick, is getting a ton of hate. But what I love is everybody would love to see Bill Belichick be the defensive coordinator, and they don't understand that Bill Belichick has 2 decisions: another head coaching gig or retirement. There is no way in hell that guy is going to settle for a defensive coordinator position, no matter what team it is. He's been in the game too long. He's been a head coach for too long. He's not going to take a defensive court. I will close this show down if he were to become defensive coordinator, because it's
I would
not
be
going to happen.
absolutely
There's going to be
shocked.
yeah, because there's going to be too many openings in the league for head coaches, and he's a known winner. Take away the GM aspect of it, just let him be a coach. He's going to be a winner. Well, somebody on Twitter said that I lost all credibility because I added Al Harris and Steve Belichick to my list. What credit? First off, what credibility? It's all an opinion piece, and I'm a nobody anyway. But I still got you to read my article. So who has less credibility? The guy who wrote it or the guy that read it?
No complaints here. Yeah, no, it's dog eat dog and all that kind of crap. People are gonna say and complain about whatever they want, but thank you for reading it.
Well, yeah, I love it. It's getting a lot of views right now, and I appreciate everybody reading it. I appreciate comments, but I am going to call out when I see something like that, because it's like, it's an opinion piece. It's not like I have an in with the Packers and said, "Well, this is who I'm hearing is going to be signed as the defensive coordinator." No, everybody's wanting that Belichick system. You're not going to get Bill, so the next best thing is to, get the guy who is the prodigy of Bill. Would work for me, wouldn't it?
Yep,
Over like
you would like
Matt
to think so.
Patricia or some of these other names that are, Mike Zimmer, some of these guys that are getting thrown around right now. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. We'll do over unders. Uh, so my first one is an obvious one. Over under Justin Jefferson 90.5 yards.
How dare you disrespect him and not give the over under as a triple digit? Nah, I'm kidding. It's gonna be over.
I would have to believe so, unless they have to go through all 3 friggin' quarterbacks for some reason.
Yeah. And even then, I think a running back could throw to him for more than 91 yards, so I'm gonna say over.
Yeah, I got the over. I set it at 90.5 just to kind of give hope. And, there is a chance that maybe everything locks in for Eric Stokes and he can just or Carrington Valentine, and they can just have career games against Justin Jefferson, because it could happen. I mean, it probably isn't gonna happen, but there is a chance it could happen. This one I put on here as an interesting one just because we saw what happened last week against Carolina, because this was, like, the most carries he's had all year, and this is the first. Last week was the first 100-yard rusher we've had all season. So we'll see if it carries over, but over under 15.5 carries for Aaron Jones.
I'm gonna say yes because I don't think at any point the
Over
game
under.
is gonna over. Sorry, yeah, I think over because I don't think at any point the game is gonna get away from the Packers. We even saw it, the week. What was that, week 9 or 10 or whatever? The first time we played them, I know it kind of looked like it got away at the end, but there was still enough time that they could run the ball a little bit and stuff. So I think he's gonna get over 15 and a half.
Like I said earlier, I really hope that just run them till the wheels fall off. I hate to sound like that because I don't want to see anything happen to Aaron Jones, but again, he's the obvious playmaker. If you're going to be down a handful of your receiving targets as is, you might as well just go with it.
Yeah.
Go with it until it doesn't work.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
I'm going to go over just because I hope. And then lastly, just because of what's going on, and we don't know what quarterback's playing, quote unquote. We don't know, what, injuries and everything else. Packers defense, 2.5 sacks.
I'm gonna go under just because, like I said, that's a Minnesota O line is pretty solid. And Packers pass rush hasn't been that great against some rough O lines the past few weeks, so I'm gonna say under.
I always say, and everybody else always says, the Packers always play up to competition and down to competition. And we've seen it again all season where they beat the Lions, they beat the Chiefs, they beat the Chargers, but they barely won against Carolina. They lost against the Giants, So I'm going to say over. And, I know other people have been seeing this too, but Lucas has really been starting to find his groove. I I'm hoping Rashawn can get back to form. Maybe see a Preston and a Kingsley sighting. Maybe get some of those young defensive linemen pop in there. Carl Brooks. Maybe we'll finally see a breakout from Kobe Wooden. Uh, who knows? Maybe we get the TJ Slayton sack with the Gravedigger. I still think he needed a full sack on that, because on that one that Kenny got credit for, because he did more of it than Kenny did. But hey, that's just me. So I'm going over just because of hope.
Sounds good. Yep. And that's gonna do it for us. Just a short and simple one this week. Like you said, it's kind of rehashing a lot of the same of what we reviewed already from this game. This opponent, I should say. Joe, any other snippets from you this week, or are you kind of good on this one
No, I
already?
just want to say, from my earlier rant, that if anybody does want to debate, and I'm not, I'm being serious here. Send us a message, whatever. We'll get you on the show. We'll debate it. If Mike doesn't want to debate it, I'll debate it with you, and Mike can moderate it. Just DM us, send us a message on whatever format you're using. Uh, what's the email? It's outbackpackers1919 at gmail.com.
Yep.
Mike's going to give our Twitter handles, or you can see it on the screen here if you're watching. If you have an issue with anything we've said, or you want to debate something or whatever, shoot us a message. We'll get you on. We'll have a debate with it.
Yep. Unlike the Packers, we don't back down from any sort of competition. So we'll
Damn
take
right.
it as But that's going to do it for us tonight. We want to thank you for joining us on this episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. You can follow us on our Twitters. I'm at Kawano Mike. Joe is at Iowa underscore Joe 86. The podcast is at Ohana underscore Packers. Please check out the website ohanapackers.org. You can find our blog posts like Joe's already under fire 5 candidates for the Packers DC spot, and place your thoughts in the comments sections. We really do appreciate all the feedback we get,
Yes,
positive or negative.
please
And like
do.
Joe said, please message the Twitter account if you want to come on and have a little bit of a hearty discussion on some of whether it's that post or other ones that are on. We're open to any sort of interaction with people who read our posts or follow the pod. So please do message us if you're interested in that. Also on the website, you can catch all the streams of every episode of the podcast. Please follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting app. Give us a subscribe and a like if you're enjoying what you're hearing. And whether it's positive or negative, like we said, please do comment on the episodes. We do appreciate any feedback, and we will take it to heart. Packers are 7-8. If they win the next 2 games, their playoff chances are, I believe, 95% or something like that. But it's going to be a tough one this week. They've got to play clean, smart football in probably, like I said, the toughest road environment they're going to face this season. Unless they make the playoffs, and then obviously that would ramp it up at that point. But it's a good measuring stick for the team, especially this young team with Jordan Love at the helm. So excited to see what they do on New Year's Eve. That's going to be a Go Pack Go and Aloha.